Carole, you've come with, which I think is quite an interesting pamphlet. If you could just show it to the camera. Hot, sour and breathless, ocean under stress. Why is the ocean going sour? What's the thinking behind this headline, and what can it tell us about the state of the oceans?
What we've tried to do is to draw attention to three major ocean stresses. That's ocean warming, which is the sour, which is the hot, ocean acidification, which is the sour. It's getting more sour, it's becoming more and more acidic, and breathless as well, deoxidation, oxygen loss. When you warm a liquid, you lose gases from it. That's why we swirl brandies to get that wonderful flavour. And so what we've done here is put together an ocean stress guide. And here we've got a guide, and basically on what the causes are and what the impacts and the feedbacks to society and also sustainability and climate change. So it's very, very simple. It's been put together by a collaboration of research institutes and research programs. And it's been endorsed, supported by a whole range of international and intergovernmental organizations. So it's a very nice summary. You can find it on www.oceanunderstress.com, and you can download the PDF there.
There's an amazing number of organisations you've got supporting this initiative. I guess does that suggest that this is an issue that is being taken very seriously across the board?
Ocean acidification has only really emerged as an issue in the last 10 years, and around the world, countries are now investing in ocean acidification research. And as that's happening, and we're finding more and more research findings that this is indeed a serious threat for the oceans, intergovernmental organizations are now catching on, becoming aware of that because of the science evidence-based message, and moving along using their various ways of communicating the science.
I mean, ocean acidification, it sounds a bit like something out of a J.G. Ballard novel. Is it as serious as that? I mean, I guess some people might put their foot into the sea and then they can take it out again and find it's still there. What levels are we at the moment, and how bad could it get?
You know, that's a really good question, because it's like warming. If you've got water at 2 degrees and you warm it to 4 degrees, that's warming. The oceans will never, God hope not, become acidic, that is a pH below 7, but they will move down the gradient, the acidity gradient, towards that. What's really important is that organisms that we know today in the marine environment have had that environment available to them that's pretty consistent in terms of its acidity, its pH, for millions of years, about 20 million years. It's been pretty consistent. And if you go back to 55 million years ago, there was a mass extinction of organisms in the oceans, and that was an ocean acidification event. But the speed at which that happened was over thousands of years. What's happening now is over hundreds of years. So, you know, we're having this amazing impact by putting all of the CO2 through fossil fuel burning into the atmosphere. The oceans, being so vast, have already taken up nearly a third, 30% of that CO2 over the last 200 years. And that is adding this CO2, an acid gas, to the oceans, and that is affecting the chemistry in the oceans. And that includes the carbonate chemistry. So if you're a mussel in the ocean and you want to make your shell, you're going to have to put a lot more energy into extracting those carbonate ions into making the shell. So you're going to have to spend it, so you're not going to have that to spend somewhere else, like in reproduction, or through forming sperm and gametes and youngsters, or growing. So there are all these pressures. It's an increased pressure on some organisms. And some areas of the world, such as the Arctic and Antarctic, will actually be corrosive to marine unprotected shelled marine organisms within a decade or two. It's really happening now. And coral reefs are a big worry too, because the corals fix that calcium carbonate that we call a reef, and if they have to spend more energy to do that, there's going to be a point where the natural erosion of the reef, because things erode naturally, is going to be faster than the reef's ability to grow. And we're seeing that in Papua New Guinea, where there are these amazing coral reefs where there's carbon dioxide flowing through them from sort of volcanic activity below. And so the CO2 is coming up. And so the scientists actually can look at it along a gradient, that's from present day to the end of this century. And present day, there's great biodiversity, beautiful reefs. 2040, they're really breaking down, and by the end of the century, type of CO2 levels, they're nearly totally gone. They're really devoid of life and breaking down. And so these are sort of a window into a high CO2 world.
I guess I quite like your analogy about breathless, because when you go trekking, if people have been trekking and you get to about 4,000 meters, 5,000 meters, you do start to, you're gasping for oxygen, and obviously it takes you longer to walk, and you're slowing down, you feel a bit dizzy. Are you saying something similar is happening or could be happening in the future in the seas, and that would affect all of the fish and all of the organisms within those seas?
There's two sorts of things around oxygen. One are what they call dead zones, where there's very little or no oxygen in the sea. There's areas like the Black Sea and in the Gulf of Mexico where there are these dead zones, and these are spreading, and a lot of these are caused by nutrient flowing down from our agriculture into the sea, causing big blooms of phytoplankton. Like any other plant, it uses oxygen, produces CO2, and then it starts to fall and rot, and so basically oxygen gets used up by the rotting process through the bacterial breakdown. And then there's this gradual loss of oxygen when you warm a liquid. That's happening as well. So it's another stressor.